Isha is the Eldari goddess of the harvest, fertility, nature, life, healing and growth, and the divine mother of the Eldari species in Eldari mythology. She is the maid of Kurnus, the god of the hunt. The only truly benevolent member of the Eldari pantheon, it is said that it was Isha who intervened and created all non-Eldari life in the universe once Asurion, the king of the Eldari pantheon, no longer took interest in his creations and their solitude. After the fall of the Eldari, Isha was about to be devoured by Slaanesh like all of her divine brethren, but she was rescued by the forces of the plague god Nurgle. Today, many Eldari believe that Nurgle keeps Isha in a cage in his plague gardens in the realm of chaos, where he tests out every new disease and pestilence he creates to affect the mortal realm. But Isha still seeks to aid mortals by whispering the cures for each of Nurgle's plagues into the universe to be discovered when they are most needed. It was said in Eldari legend that wherever Isha walks, rose-like flowers would bloom in her wake, and such flowers offered protection to any mortals who could acquire them from the corruptive energies of chaos. What fell purpose Slaanesh had in keeping Isha alive, none amongst the Eldari now know, but the Prince of Pleasure was ultimately denied its spoils. For some reason, Nurgle, the Plague Lord, waged war against Slaanesh to rescue the Eldari goddess. Why Grandfather Nurgle intervened is unclear, although some Eldari savants believe that one of the oldest of the major Chaos gods wanted to give the youngest amongst them a good lesson about his proper place in the order of things. What is known is that Nurgle's demonic forces proved victorious, and he took the Eldari goddess back to his domain in the realm of chaos. A goddess of rejuvenation and a god of decay seemed an odd pairing, but Nurgle came to adore his new companion like no other being in the universe. However, he shows his love in the only way a Chaos god knows how. Nurgle keeps Isha imprisoned in a rusted cage within his personal manse in the corner of his plague gardens. It is there that he keeps the cauldron where he mixes the elements that create all of his plagues and pestilences. Nurgle tests all of his new, virulent creations upon the body of his companion. As the goddess of healing and the spiritual embodiment of health and growth, Isha can cure herself of these afflictions, but the Plague Lord gains an idea of their potency by watching how much power the Eldari goddess must expend to cure herself. If he is pleased with how hard Isha must struggle to conquer the disease, Nurgle releases the new creation upon some unsuspecting world. But if not, he starts over, working at his cauldron until he has something new to give to his divine companion. Isha accepts her lot stoically and fights back against the plague god's evil in the same way she once fought against Cain, whispering the cures to these new diseases into the universe so that mortals might know them and resist the hideous designs of Grandfather Nurgle.
Very few mortal eyes have beheld the Garden of Nurgle. Its swamplands constantly wheeze a fog of supernatural diseases, and living beings cannot endure so much as a single breath of its repugnant air. Only Nurgle himself can spare visitors from his garden's toxic affections. When he is expecting company, he will open a path through the gurgling fungus fronds with a single magnanimous gesture. Trespassers are viewed poorly in Nurgle's domain, as the seers of Lugganath found to their cost. The Eldari of that far-flung craft world have long told the story of the caged maiden, wherein Isha, the goddess of fertility and healing, is imprisoned in Nurgle's mansion. There she is forced to imbibe Nurgle's most pleasing concoctions, as her grotesque admirer observes their results with building excitement. And Isha's restorative powers ensure the process can be eternally repeated. The Eldari believe their myths to be founded in truth, and so it was that when Lugganath was ravaged by the brittle coma, a council of its most gifted psychers cast their minds into the domain of Nurgle in pursuit of Isha, hoping to find their lost goddess and put a halt to their craft world's deadly malaise. They knew that they would almost certainly die in the attempt, but believed that their souls would ultimately be drawn back into the glittering spirit stones of their comatose bodies. Once safe in their crystal afterlife, they could impart Isha's cure to the spirit seers and lift Nurgle's curse. At first, their astrally projected forms appeared to be able to pass through the grasping foliage of Nurgle's garden with ease. Their ghost helms kept them as insubstantial as spirits, and their rune-shielded minds cut through the dismal vegetation, for they were sharper than any corporeal blade.
The rot flies of that realm buzzed loud in alarm, however, and whispered of the intruders into Nurgle's ear.
Just as the seers of Lugganath sighted grandfather Nurgle's manse in the distance, a great host of plague-bearers rose up from the mud and began to chant in a droning monotone as they came forward. The seers channeled their psychic energy into great blasts of cleansing blue fire, boiling away huge chunks of Nurgle's army and darting out of the clumsy reach of their foes. But ever more plague-bearers emerged from the slurry to block their path. The battle raged for days, and swathes of Nurgle's garden were blasted to ruin in the process. However, in the material dimension, the physical forms of the trespassing seers began to convulse and shake, succumbing to the very plague they hoped to overcome. Slowly, as their bodies shriveled and their spirit stones turned to rotting mulch, the souls of the seers that were trapped in Nurgle's realm began to pass fully into the immaterium. The soupy atmosphere of the garden seeped into their lungs, worm-riddled mud spattered up their legs, and white-bodied demon flies clambered into their mouths. Claimed at last, the seers' feet took root as their faces hardened into bark. Their arms split and twisted into gnarled branches, each finger hung with ripening Nurgling fruit. The seers of Lugganath remain there still, a copse of wailing trees that brighten Nurgle's leisurely walks and strike a note of despair into the heart of Isha, his immortal captive. Such is the fate of all those who enter uninvited into the heartlands of Nurgle, for even the generosity of Grandfather Plague has its limits.